time has come for the trivia results. Our guests did the same human evolution-themed trivia that you did. Let's find out how they did. Evan, Deborah, Moya, did you find the answers to be natural selections? Or do you owe us all an anthro apology?
Keep them coming.
Good one.
What?
One more.
Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we have a name.
okay,
We
what's
have
your team name?
We are the Prime Mates.
That's really good. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So let's find out how our prime mates did. Question 1. 13,000-year-old impressions made by a toddler's hand were found over 6 feet up on a cave wall. How did the toddler get up that high?
I've never actually heard of this site. 13,000 years is a little too young for me. So I'm actually not familiar.
Barely legal.
Barely Paleolithic. So we kind of like went back and forth, and so we were all like, well, you know, this toddler's probably not climbing rock walls and not doing, you know, acrobatics to get up there. Then we thought, what about their parent lifting them up? And then how do we know that? So unless there's a footprint along with these handprints to indicate an adult. And then I think what we landed on is that there's got to be some sort of water involved. Either this toddler was free swimming in a cave, or maybe they were like on boats or something like that, or maybe the water might have scoured out the original sediments that now leave the cave looking much lower than it was.
These are really, really interesting guesses, and you said both of the possible right answers. The paper in question concluded that an adult lifted them up.
Oh, well, because
How
our
could we
first
possibly
answer,
know that?
Which I'm giving
that's
you-
what I
I'm
said,
giving
our
you
first
that.
answer was, we don't know.
I'm giving you that, and well, so there's a lot of discussion in it that I don't know that I could fully
Maybe
recapitulate
this
as
kid
non-expert.
could jump that high. No,
Yeah, maybe built different. Yeah, we don't know. The other answer you said that they couldn't rule out was that the cave floor had once been higher, which is basically the other thing you said. So the paper specifically thought it was an adult that had like lifted them up or put them on their shoulders, or that alternatively the cave floor isn't where it used to be.
Gotcha.
Tall man with tiny hands.
Yes.
Is that what
That's
she said?
fantastic.
Yeah, Noah, exactly how could you rule that out?
That was in fact the third thing they hypothesized. Was a special hominid who snuck into this human cave with tiny itty bitty hands. So the gist of this paper, though, is that prehistoric children were finger painting on cave walls, and adults were teaching them how. And it was this really sweet study where they found these sort of like chambers where like first of all there were tons of places in this cave where adults were like drawing all over the walls and stuff, either with like paint or doing the like negative impressions by like blowing ash or whatever.
Ochre.
What is it? Ochre, yeah.
Ochre.
It's in the background.
Yes, that indeed. Doing something like that. But there's also places in caves where it's something like the water dripping down is this sort of mineral watery slush that when it's like still wet you can like press into, and then as it like dries or like basically like lithifies, I think was the word, it'll leave behind the surface that is just sort of looks like rock. But there were like special zones of this cave that were like almost exclusively children, but like drawn by children to the best of their estimation.
daycare.
Yeah, and so it was reported on as one of the study authors talked about it as a prehistoric preschool, where like the children of like 13,000 years ago were basically put in this little like playpen chamber and like taught by at least 2 adults. Their footprints and stuff were like found like right next to the wall where where the paintings were found, and they hypothesized that this was like the place that they taught them how to produce art, and that they would eventually be in the adult painting room.
This is the iPad kids of
Yes.
Paleolithic times.
Yeah, I think a lot of studies recently have shown that a lot of these arts, like these handprints, and a lot of the art in these caves early on is mostly women and children, based on the size of the handprints and other things. So it's really cool to think about this like culture of art making.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh, sorry, this was the paper. So it's counting the children, the role of children in the production of finger flutings, which is like the impressions made by like fingers in 4 upper Paleolithic caves. This is what they kind of looked like. So if you were expecting
some zigzags.
Yeah, zigzags. Only humans do that. We know this. We know this.
They have no sharp edges. I would say that's more of a wobble.
And if you were expecting something more impressive than this, then you have never seen a child's art. This is the refrigerator of the Paleolithic here. But I want to talk to you a little bit about Neanderthals. There was a article that was written in Quaternary that was based on some findings from a cave. It was the Prado Vargas cave in Spain, and they dated around 46,000 years ago, and that they had found that one of the Neanderthals, what do we say? Neanderthals, who inhabited this cave had collected a bunch of like marine fossils, and as far as they can tell, just because they thought they were pretty. There only one out of the like 16 or so that they found had any evidence that it was even used at all as like a tool, and they were sort of arranged in a special little way that indicated they were like a special little they were like the little.
These are my shells.
These are my shells, yeah. And they hypothesized that it was a child that had done it, which is just really sweet. And so, in addition to being artists, Neanderthal children might have been curators, so pretty advanced.
Yeah.
And second, there was hand and foot impressions that were thought to be made by two Denisovan children as early as 226,000 years ago, near a hot spring in Tibet, and is thought to be the earliest example of what is called parietal art, which, as I understand it, essentially it means like art that is like made on rocks, like cave walls, floors, or in this case, the ground. I saw it described somewhere else as the earliest immobile art. Based on the placement and patterns of these prints, here's what it looks like.
The way the gait moves, the foot as it's pushing on and towing off.
But they think that what happened was they put one foot down, and then they put the other foot down, so they made like a big toe foot. And there's like other examples where they were like wiggling the thumb and stuff. So it's a really, really interesting paper to read. All right, so question 2. True or false? In 1925, the town of Scopes, Tennessee, put an ape on trial for teaching evolution in what became known as the Scopes monkey trial.
Well, I initially said false because I'm an asshole, and I need to point out that if it was a chimp or an ape, it's not going to be a monkey.
You found the first of my little traps.
But then we were like, we don't name things based on facts and truth.
Yeah.
Americans don't know the difference between apes and monkeys.
We had a whole trial about it.
Yeah, but we also then realized we definitely have heard of this.
Okay.
We definitely know. I know that this is an event, but I just don't know the exact date.
But we did say true.
It is false.
Oh.
Damn.
Now, humans are apes, like you pointed out, and this is a trial of a human ape. However, it was a person named Scopes, not in Scopes, Tennessee. So
was it called the Scopes monkey trial?
It was called the Scopes monkey trial.
Okay.
So let me tell you, in 1925, there was a case of the state of Tennessee versus John Thomas Scopes, and it became commonly known as the Scopes monkey trial. And it involved a human teacher, whose name was John Thomas Scopes, who had been accused of violating a Tennessee state law that forbade the teaching of human evolution in public schools. And this case became like a cultural phenomenon. And it was often, basically, this affair was often framed as like this theological debate as much as it was about like whether or not evolution was true or whether it should be taught in schools. And evidently, this trial was actually just sort of staged, basically in order to bring publicity to the town of Dayton, Tennessee, where Scopes taught. And in fact, Scopes wasn't sure whether he had actually ever taught evolution at the high school. But he intentionally incriminated himself so that the case could have a defendant and they would have their spectacle. So Scopes was eventually found guilty. He was fined $100, which is equivalent to about like $1,850 today. But the verdict was actually overturned by the Tennessee Supreme Court on a technicality, with the Chief Justice writing, "We see nothing to be gained by prolonging the life of this bizarre case." Question 3. Folklore from around the world refers to the Pleiades star cluster as the Seven Sisters, but only 6 are visible to the naked eye. How is this a clue that these myths may be at least 100,000 years old?
I've heard of this before. Like it's a vague memory of mine, but maybe our answer won't be satisfying to you. We just said that's how long ago the seventh star was shining, and that it's not shining anymore.
If the answer had been you can't see it now, but you could see it before.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, got it. Cool, yes.
We might not have said it, but that's what we mean.
That's how long ago the seventh star was shining last. That's
so I will tell you, the oldest story still being told might be over 100,000 years old. And the Pleiades is a cluster of stars that are represented in folklore from around the world as 7 individuals, most often as, quote, 7 sisters, who are being pursued by a male figure who is typically represented by either the constellation Orion, as like the Greeks thought of it and we do, or by stars that are part of what we would call the constellation Orion. So for example, in Greek mythology, the Pleiades are 7 sisters who Zeus turned into stars so that they can, I'm going to catch up on my slides, so that they can flee from Orion, whose motives, let's just say, are not pure. And in Aboriginal Australian
are those
folklore...
little stars his...
It's That's his sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
He has a sword.
Sorry, I needed to know.
So in Aboriginal Australian folklore, there are also many strikingly similar stories. For example, for the Wirangu people of coastal southern Australia, the Pleiades are also 7 sisters. They're being chased by a hunter represented by the constellation Orion, who had fallen in love with them. However, in this version, the 7 sisters are themselves chasing a snake, which I think is a fun addition just to give them something to do other than just being pursued. And so now the Pleiades actually contains more than, let's see what I got here, more than 1,000 stars. But if you were to go somewhere with less light pollution than New York City and look at the sky, most people with 20/20 vision would count about 6 distinguishable points of light. So why the number 7 in all these myths? In their paper, Why Are There 7 Sisters? Ray P. Norris and Barnaby R.M. Norris, they basically modeled that around 100,000 years ago, there were 7 distinct visible stars. And what has happened is not that one of them has vanished, it's that it's basically moved behind the other one. So the 7th one is actually like a little bump like on the top of the 6th one. It's just that the combination of its position, or their positions relative to us, their brightness, and also some like optical features of like the human retina mean that basically like we can't quite see different ones. But apparently people with like better than 20/20 vision can sometimes see it under like really good conditions. They suggest that around 100,000 years ago, this was one story. And it was around a time, let's say, they track back to around 100,000 years ago. These stars would have looked clearly different. The stories would be about these 7 stars, and that the people who then went over into what do we got here? Yes, into Europe, and the people who went on and into Australia. Sort of shared this cultural tradition where a male pest is chasing 7 women. Hey, timeless story, right? And basically,
And they chose the snake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this idea that this story of the 7 sisters persisted even after they had moved so close together from our perspective that you couldn't tell that they were 6, that they were actually 7. And a lot of these myths did come up with sort of back justifications for what happened to the 7th star. Like in Greek mythology, at least some stories are, I forget which one, but one of them was like either, I don't know, devastated by like the destruction of Troy, or was like captured or something, and like that, or hid her face because she was shy. And so these are all like justifications for why there aren't 7 stories anymore, but those arose later. The reason, again, that I thought this was interesting in the context of human evolution is humans, sapiens coming out of Africa, as I have learned, we're not the first humans to leave Africa. I guess maybe I can be corrected here, but certainly like Homo erectus, went out and I guess maybe split into Neanderthals and Denisovans, and maybe even something that they consider Homo erectus persisted for a while. But there were people there, and like this rocked me to my core. Because when I started thinking about how old could humans have been telling stories to each other, and then thought about what if we left with all of our stories into a brand new continent and encountered people who we know that we sometimes cohabited with potentially. We certainly know that we fraternize. Yeah, we certainly know that we have inherited chunks of their DNA that vary from where you are from around the world. But it just was crazy because, and this is sort of the longest trivia answer, sorry, we'll move on quickly. But it was like, I couldn't help but think, was there ever a time when sapiens left Africa and met Neanderthals or Denisovans and we're all just sitting around a fire telling each other their stories? And I got obsessed with what did Neanderthals think of Orion? What did Denisovans think of the Pleiades? And how much of our stories are, how much of what is in our stories is a reflection of these people that we met out where we thought maybe there were no people, and how many of our stories are theirs? And I just I got chills thinking about that. And the point is, all I have are these questions, and there's no particular reason to think they'll ever be answered, or that they even could be. But this is all to say, I don't know if I've ever been so profoundly affected by my research into one of the themes for this show, and as I have by human evolution. And for context, 3 months before I got married, we did a show about love. Question 4.
I'm staring directly at your wife.
My wife is over here. One of the oldest and most complete Neanderthal skeletons is still sitting in the Italian sinkhole where it was discovered because it is covered in which one of the following? A, bacon, B, popcorn, C, bread crust, D, Swiss cheese, or E, blueberries?
So I just have to say, this is an amazing fossil because it's literally in the village where my family comes from in Italy.
Is it really?
Altamura.
That's unreal.
And so I've talked to my family about this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's this cave where there's the men with the big brow," and they're like, "We don't want to talk about it." They also have dinosaur footprints there, so they're like, "Yeah, there's dinosaurs," and I was like, "Okay, fair," but so this is something that I know very well because I've seen it so many times, and it's not actually popcorn, but it looks like popcorn.
It sure does.
And it's a great thing for caveat too with the popcorn.
Yes. And the caveat popcorn is a play on cave popcorn, maybe. It looks like what it's like to be inside the popcorn thing.
Sorry to diss your great.
So basically, and I am going to run through.
This is my great-grandfather.
Yeah. The answer to this was popcorn. A nearly complete Neanderthal skeleton is stuck in the cave where it was discovered because it is covered in popcorn. Cave popcorn. The Altamura man is one of the most remarkable Neanderthal specimens ever found, both for how extraordinarily complete it is, but also for the unusual circumstances that it kept it trapped there. The Altamura man fell into a sinkhole, and then he died. He just sort of sat down and died. And it was discovered in 1993 inside a cave in southern Italy, and the skeleton lies deep in this sinkhole, and it's thought that the individual fell in like 150,000 years ago, and over the tens of thousands of years that have passed, this mineral-rich water dripped down and created these sort of like calcium-rich like deposits that are now cover it, and they can't get it out because it's so like fused to the wall now that if they try to take it out, they'll damage what basically they regard to be as like one of the most important Neanderthal specimens that we have. And so they're trying all these like crazy things to like look at it in situ. And so here's another picture of the bones. I'm going to speed through. Here's a picture where they stuck a camera up through a little hole and looked at the top of its mouth. So they're trying everything they can.
It almost looks like the colonoscopy footage that like, you know.
So I'll tell you real quick, cave bacon is also real. It's when you get these same sort of like dripping things that hang like curtains, and when light shines behind them, they really look like bacon. Bread crust lava bomb, that's when a bunch of lava shoots out from a volcano. It cools in the air, but just the outside. The inside is really hot, so it expands, and then the top like crust of it breaks a little bit like bread crust. Martian blueberries, the next two actually are found on Mars. These were just like little like iron-rich little like pebbles that they found that then they've just taken to calling blueberries. They're not actually blue. They're just sort of gray, and against like the red background of the dust, they kind of can look blue. This is actually pseudo-colored though. And finally, Martian Swiss cheese. I think this is in the like the ice caps on Mars that are frozen CO2 actually. I think. And so these are places where that like CO2 is sublimated, so gone straight from being frozen ice to gas, and it happens in these weird patterns that they call Swiss cheese. All right, question 5. Humans are thought to have retained a vestigial reflex from our amphibian ancestors called a synchronous diaphragmatic flutter, more commonly known as what?
To get this one, we started fluttering our diaphragms and then seeing what it looked like, and it looked like a hiccup.
You're absolutely right. Really well done. Do you hate hiccups? Blame a frog. Some hiccup scientists have proposed that hiccups are a vestigial reflex that we inherited from our amphibian ancestors, and in particular, the way that tadpoles breathe. So tadpoles rely on this sort of rhythmic sort of pumping action. It's called buccal pumping, to move water across their gills without aspirating it into their like developing lungs. And in this process, they draw water into the mouth, they contract their throat muscles, and then they rapidly close the glottis. So this pattern is very, very similar to the pattern of a human hiccup. And according to this theory, we, as evolutionary descendants of these sort of tetrapod amphibious ancestors, retain this sort of neural circuitry within our brainstem and the kind of like patterns that get generated by those parts of the brain, even though this no longer serves like an important respiratory purpose. Interestingly, these same researchers point out that newborns whose nervous systems are thought of basically less inhibited and thought of to be sort of more ancestral in their patterning, they hiccup far more frequently than adults. So that was one of the things that led into this. And I wanted to ask y'all before we move on, do you have any hiccup remedies that you swear by? Watermelons, I heard one.
So my dad
Don't know
used to
what that
say
means.
you chug a full glass of water that has a butter knife in it, and then you balance the butter knife on your forehead and you stare at it while you're chugging it, and then you
Right.
hold your breath and then breathe out through your nose and in through your mouth.
So
Yeah.
what, you're just confusing yourself so
Yeah,
much you forget
basically,
about the
you're
hiccup?
just overwhelming your brain to be like, I don't want to hiccup anymore because what the fuck am I doing?
Well, basically, no home remedy for hiccups works at all. That is fundamentally what it is. What really happens is that if you do something long enough, it'll go away. And so if you like focus on like trying to find a glass, fill it up with water, and drink from the back, after a while you'll just have stopped hiccuping anyway. But there is something that has been found to work. There are some drugs, like medicines and other like sort of really upsetting physical maneuvers. Like for example, there's something called, where I don't forget what it's called, but it's something where you like put pressure on the eyes, so a doctor can do this to you if you have something like, yeah. Well, let's see how you prefer this other one, because there have been 2 cases of termination of intractable hiccups with digital rectal massage.
I'm in.
You may notice that a lot of the times when I've showed a paper, I've showed the name of the journal, and the reason I've waited is because it was the Annals of Emergency Medicine, which they clarify as an international journal for discerning annals. This is, in fact, I think this is the first time it was reported, and a couple years later, there was another report, termination of intractable hiccups with digital rectal massage, the exact same title.
This feels very like a woman goes into doctor with hysteria of masturbation.
Yeah.
This
I have some questions, but let me first answer the question you might have was, what is this journal called? The Journal of Internal Medicine. I'll say.
Jim?
Yeah, Jim. The journal. And so basically what happened is that in one of these cases, it was like a 27-year-old man who had been hiccuping 30 times a minute, every 2 seconds, for 72 hours. So he went to an emergency department, and they tried everything until they eventually came across. Basically, there was the doctor had like read some other thing where they were at the end of the line, and they were like, "Look, I read some paper in the Annals of Internal Medicine, and they said that digital rectal massage cured some sort of arrhythmia that was like a stress-related arrhythmia." So they were like, "Fuck it, I guess we'll see what happens." They stuck it up there, and then within 30 seconds the hiccups were gone. So it like works. And there is another.
Good to know.
Yeah, your dad's theory can suck it.
Yeah, seriously.
And there was another person in this other paper. It was sort of the same story. They tried all the drugs. They tried the pressing on the eyeballs. None of that worked. But then they, did a prostate exam and everything was fine. And the second one, the 6-year-old man, they let him sort of sit there for about 30 minutes, and it had gone away. But then it eventually came back, and they did it again, and it went away again. So my question, exactly. The second time, a few hours later, I wonder if these doctors can spot a fake hiccup. That's my question. Asking for a now 95-year-old friend. Question 6, true or false? While Neanderthals likely had the capacity to speak, it has been proposed that they had high-pitched nasal voices.
So yes, this we said true because there is an amazing video.
Why don't you hold on?
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah. Just play
the answer
it, play
is
it.
true. There's evidence suggests that Neanderthals were capable of speech and language, though their voices may have sounded somewhat different than ours. We just don't know. Studies of their vocal tract anatomy, inner ear structure, and certain genetic features like the FOXP2 locus are associated with speech and language, and in humans that are associated with speech and language in humans support this idea that they could produce complex sounds, and the structure of their inner ear also supports that they could have heard essentially the frequencies that are common in human speech. A BBC documentary. I'm losing my voice, sorry. A BBC documentary modeled the vocal tracts to the best of their ability from human and Neanderthals, and it brought them to renowned vocal coach Patsy Rodenberg, who subjected actor Elliot Shrimpton Patsy subjected Elliot Shrimpton to a series of exercises to try to make his voice sound closer to a Neanderthal's based on what she interpreted from the difference in their vocal tracts. So they started with his normal voice.
Male human voice, count over 3.
1, 2, 3.
Next, due to the shorter vocal tract of the Neanderthals, she had him raise the pitch a little bit.
1, 2, 3.
Next, she had him add a little bit of like nasality to it because they had a much larger nasal cavity.
1, 2, 3.
And finally, she pointed out that their much heavier skull would pull down the skull into the throat, and that their huge chest would create a lot of like chest resonance. So they would really just be yelling everything. So this is what that sounded like.
1, 2, 3.
Now, other scientists have criticized this theory. They're saying it doesn't take into account the way non-fossilizing soft tissues can impact pitch, and that likely the voices of Neanderthals were much closer to modern human pitch than the high-tech models that they were using indicate. And I can only imagine Elliot's frustration that he had to do all that just for so-called scientists who never even went to voice school to suggest that there are other factors to consider and that Neanderthals maybe just mostly sounded like us, except that I don't have to imagine his frustration, which I suspect would have sounded something like this. Thank you. Question 7. A penultimate question. Chimpanzee fashionistas have begun putting sticks and blades of grass where?
So Evan very confidently knew this immediately.
Why?
Because he's tried it, and the answer is ears and butts.
Ears and butts was exactly right.
Yeah.
Wow. So impressive.
What I remember is it's one female started this trend a while back with the ears, and then everyone picked up on it, and then it's recently resurged, and then they've added an extra flair on it by not only putting them in their ears, but taking it down south and getting rid of their hiccups.
That is absolutely correct. I don't even have to read any of this, thank God, because we're so over time. So the answer is, in fact, ears and butts. A troop, basically, there's actually two different troops. In one troop, it sort of arose spontaneously, started putting the ears, and then it spread to everybody else in the troop. A second troop, the same exact thing happened, but then an innovator started putting it in his butt, and then a bunch of others started putting it in their butt as well.
Oh, not the in and out, not the in and out.
Well, you got to make sure it's fast. If it's not in and out, yeah, he's got the hiccups. Good point. Here's wait. If we all quiet down for a second, this one has audio, and there's something that one of the caretakers says that I really loved.
2046, and the stick is still there.
Okay, if you couldn't hear that, he says it's 2046, and the stick is still there. All right.
Captain's log.
So
By the way, my official primatologist guess as to why they do that is because it probably feels awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had a hypothesis as to why they picked up the behavior in the first place, and is that apparently, where is it here? Apparently, the researchers suggest that they learned it from their human caretakers. Relax. Who reported that they used blades of grass to clean their ears, okay? And that the chimps had innovated their new orifice all on their own. The chimpanzees were actually, who were dissatisfied with their daily allotment of treats, were quoted as saying that their caretakers had sticks up their asses long before we did. Thanks. And so appropriately, this fascinating study, chimpanzees socially learn non-instrumental behavior from conspecifics, is an anagram for, ouch, splinters in my anus, freeze, no more romance till I banish cloacal pains. And sure, did I run out of A's during cloacal? Yes. And sure, did I not include these letters? Yes. But you should be thanking me, because the only actual complete anagram that I got from this title included F all vaccination chips, libs. And it's just now occurring to me, do you think these authors of this paper mind that this screenshot will be on the internet? Well, no way to know.
All press is good press.
Yeah. All right, last question for the night, and then we'll wrap up. Which one of the following primate species did I make up? A, Loris tardigratus. B, gorilla. I can't not say it like that. C, Nacholopithecus carioi. D, Oreopithecus bambolii. Or E, this is the one I invented.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time deliberating this one. Once I phonetically said the last one, it was clear. But as I was going down the list, the first one I was like, I don't know lorises that well. I don't know their species names. So I was like, I don't know. But I do know the rest. Gorilla does exist. And fun fact, Nacholopithecus and Oreopithecus are both fossil apes, and we consider them the snack apes, because they have snacks in their names, Nacho and Oreo.
Yeah, oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll so briefly go through, because you said them all. This is the Western lowland gorilla. And honestly, I saw this and was like, that looks kind of like me right now. I'm just holding court, talking about trivia. As you said, Nacholopithecus and Oreopithecus bambolii. What do you call a Lopithecus carioi that isn't yours? Nacholopithecus carioi, yeah. All right, thank you, one person. I appreciate it. Oreopithecus bambolii was an ape that lived around 9 million years ago. It is unfortunately not named after the cookie with the cream filling that we all know and love, but rest assured, Oreopithecus bambolii is still Milk's favorite ape. It's important to end on your strongest joke. How did y'all do in terms of points?
I think we just missed one.
Okay, great.
Which is the Scopes Monkey
true or
trials.
false, yeah.
7 out of 8. That means you won in the whole room.
Suck it, audience.
So you guys are going to get to be on Love Island Primate Edition.
Woo!
We'll send you down there. The audience teams did pretty well as well. There's a tie for first place, but with 6 points between Team Lancelot and Homo and Erect. So give it up for them.
Great names.
And okay, I'm reading this, and you'll understand my reaction in a second. So at Facts Machine, we don't just award a celebration to the team that scored the most points. We also award the teams that learned the most. And tonight, with 1 point apiece, 2 teams. One is called the Cream Plantain.
Yeah.
And the other team is called Da Cream Plantain. If only, I wonder if they got the same question right or a different one, because if they had just combined. Thank you all so much for coming. One more big round of applause to our amazing guests, to Caveat, and to all of you, thank you very much and good night.